Pierre, to start, you are no stranger to China. What's striking you most on your visit this time?
I landed 36 hours ago, so it's not that I have discovered anything totally new, of course. And in spite of that, what is interesting is that the world, I think, keeps being surprised a little bit by China. And right now, for instance, the Europeans seem to discover China at the moment, right? So right now it's electric cars, BID, the progress made by China in aerospace, of course, the AI, because, AI is mostly outside of China is the US, right? And so there's always, I think, China keeps surprising the world. And it's true that every time I come here, I see more progress, more advancement. I'm always surprised by how the country is actually quite resilient. Personally, I've been surprised, not necessarily seeing this around me, but by the resilience of China to the trade war, right? A year ago, I personally thought that this would affect China more than it actually did. And seeing how China has quickly pivoted, of course, it affected the trade with the US, but the rest of the world has been growing a lot. And seeing, I think, China's exports up by 11%, and those are data that is pretty easy to measure. It's pretty solid, and so seeing that growth has been, for me, quite surprising. Even knowing China, even knowing the Chinese people, I was surprised by this strong resilience.
Yeah, please get ready to be surprised this time.
Good, yeah.
And you've highlighted the incredible pace and its resilience here in China. That's why China is such a strategic market. So looking at your 2026 strategy, what are your priorities for PMI in China?
China is our second largest market, which makes sense as it's the second largest economy in the world, but not every company can say that. At one point, even in 2023, briefly, it was the largest market for PMI, even larger than the US. Since then, it has rebalanced a little bit. But China is still number 2, right? So it's very important for us, and we're very grateful for the long-term partnership we have. We work with the Chinese government, an agency called CITEF here. We have our network of training partners. We call them REPs. And we, of course, have a very strong network of corporations. Many of you work for companies that are in contact with PMI, close to PMI, where you have people who have been trained or certified by PMI. In any market, we have a little bit the same fundamental vision. PMI was created in 1969 by a number of professionals who came from different industries. And at the time, there was not exactly courses to learn project management, right? So they felt, even if they were coming from different industries, from pharmaceuticals, from aerospace, from engineering, from infrastructure, from already technology at the time, they felt that there was probably a way to share best practices that would work in most cases, like we say at PMI, for most projects most of the time, right? So they build this together as professionals, and that very core community, initially 5 people, a month later 50, then 500, and then they grew very fast, right? 700,000 who are active certification holders in China. We have millions worldwide. Of course, we operate in 200 countries, so across all sectors of the economy. But it's always focused on the community, the professionals, how we can improve their skills, help them with their careers, and then ultimately increase project success, because that's what we are there for, right? Trying to make projects more successful, and also doing it in a way that can benefit the world. It's always been about doing things right, but also doing the right things so that it benefits the world, that we are successful.
Benefiting the world sounds a little bit ambitious. Can you tell us more about that? How can you achieve those objectives?
We are introducing a new PMP exam this year. We have a corpus, we have a sort of we call it the codex, some say the Bible, so we call it the codex, called the PMBOK 8. It's the Project Management Book of Knowledge, which summarizes the current state of the profession, what are the best practices. We are launching a new version in July, and of course this is a very important way for us to promote our ideas and how we think projects should be managed. We're also launching many new initiatives this year in China. We have a new learning management system platform that can help companies monitor how their teams are learning, developing in the world of project management. We're changing our digital infrastructure. We now have WeChat applications where learners can take courses, access to a registry of who's been certified, not certified. And we have many products outside of China that we want to take to the Chinese market, especially in the AI space, in the sustainability space as well. So there's a lot of potential that is still untapped.
Yeah, I look forward to see your new progress here. Surprise us. Pierre, you know, there are so many Chinese companies going abroad. They're expanding globally. So let's talk a little bit about the going out story. From your global perspective, what are the 1 or 2 most common obstacles for those Chinese companies, whether they are doing project management overseas?
I think any company expanding globally faces the same kind of problems. Initially, there's what I've seen is operating model problems, right? So who owns the P&L? Should you decentralize more, re-centralize more? And I think all companies struggle a little bit with this. And even once they're quite mature, becoming global, there's still discussion about how things should be organized. Everybody wants localization, but at the same time, if you don't centralize, then things go in all directions. It becomes very expensive to operate, and you have risks, right? Then you have the local regulatory environment that you have to deal with.
Of course.
Because when you go global, you have to accept that there is a risk asymmetry, and you will always be initially less profitable. And it's more complicated to go abroad, right?
So you need to be very well prepared for that.
That's the problem. So many companies go back and forth a little bit. So they start investing, and then they feel, well, if I invested the same amount of money in my domestic market, maybe I'll make more money. Not good, because this stop and go doesn't allow you to really learn how to become a very efficient global company. Then, of course, you are always facing culture, talent, leadership, diversity. I see that with Chinese companies, but I see it with US companies going abroad as well. When you go to Africa, you go to Latin America, you go to many markets, how do you find the right talents? How do you speak the same language? It's always a big challenge.
Then how can I help them to overcome those hurdles?
Well, you know, one of our roles with what we do, with this corpus of knowledge that we share broadly across our community worldwide, is that we sort of reduce ambiguity a little bit, because we have every project manager on the planet speaks the same language. They speak the same language, which is the language of PMI, right? So we've established very clear ways of thinking about how you manage a project, how you manage risk, how you manage stakeholders, what are the big principles that should be respected. And that common language helps to drive less ambiguity and more understanding between local teams and central teams, so between the Chinese team, the local teams. Of course, we also help by building local strength. In many of the markets where Chinese companies are going abroad, it's hard to find talent, and it's our investment. Ourselves, being global PMI, is not maybe the most economically efficient, but we also need to be great in Vietnam, where my dad comes from, in Africa, in every single country in Latin America, in all sectors. So that kind of local strength that we build by having local people being trained and certified is also helpful for Chinese companies, just like for any company globalizing. And now, thanks to us, I hope they can find local resources that have some skill set that they can rely on. We're also helpful to establish the credibility of vendors. So, for instance, in many markets in the world, you will find that if you want to win a public contract, you need to have a number of people who are certified by PMI on your projects. So that helps establishing the credibility. And of course, many Chinese companies rely on that, as you have a lot of people trained and certified by PMI in China. So in the end, you know, we are in this position of being the leading authority in project management. I like saying that we are a broker of trust between employers, governments, buyers, and suppliers, and of course, the professionals themselves.
You mentioned about reducing ambiguity and hiring the right talents, which are very crucial to success. That makes me want to ask a more fundamental question. What's success? How do you define success in project management today?
So very often, people define project success as meeting 3 criteria. Right? We call it the iron triangle in the project management world, or the triple constraints. It's like meeting your schedule, So being on time, on budget, on scope, right?
Oh.
But the problem of that thinking is that it's very limiting. First of all, because sometimes the world is changing, right? So what you've planned initially may not be true or valid in 1 month or in 1 year, right? So the timing may shift, the scope may shift. The budgets, very often, we know they are underestimated in the first place because people want their projects to be approved. So everybody knows that it's impossible to reach the project at a certain budget that is initially agreed. So it is very important that we also have, on top of that, a measure that looks at how the success is perceived by the people it serves, right? And that's why we came up with this reframing that a successful project is a project where the value that is delivered exceeds the expense and effort, right? So if you exceed the expense and effort, it means that you manage this equation properly and you're able to recalibrate all the time your scope, how much investment you put, based on the value that is perceived, right? So we came up, by the way, with another vision for the profession that we call MORE.
MORE?
Yeah. It's about managing perception because perception is reality. So project professionals have to do more than just execution, but also manage the perception of stakeholders. They're the people who fund the project, the people who are benefiting from the project. So customers, communities, the people who are all sorts of stakeholders in the project need to be convinced that there is value that is being created. We also, the O stands for ownership. So project professionals can't say, it's not my fault because the project was poorly designed. If you're a real project professional...
It is a problem,
Yeah, that happens, but as a project professional, you need to identify that the design is wrong and support the change and convince people to change the design and do everything you can, reassessing constantly. So it's not just taking the parameters and executing, but always looking at ways to increase value or decrease cost, expense, and effort. And then there is the E, which is expand your perspective. We want our professionals to expand the vision they have of the project to the broader business, to the broader environment of the project, and understand that.
Oh, that's actually a very good point, to expand the vision. But traditionally, we consider the project management is an execution level role. It's very far from company's strategy. Is there any chance a PM can actually drive a company's strategy, not just execute it?
Yeah, so driving the strategy is more the role of the CEO and the board, but definitely as a project professional, first of all, if you don't understand the strategy, then there's a good chance that you're going to fail in your execution because you're going to blindly execute something that may be ill-conceived. We want the profession to evolve to the point where you can be a real partner, linking the strategy and execution, sometimes influencing the strategy when the strategy is not right, you know, but very importantly, making sure that what you're doing fits with the broader strategy, which sometimes can shift as well, right? So if there is a shift in the strategy, you cannot say, it's not my fault, not my responsibility, I'm just executing what I was asked to execute on, because if you do that, then in the end, the project may be perceived as a failure because you're not delivering the value that fits with the strategy. And then whether you've done a good job or not is not going to count. It's like the surgeon who say the patient is cured but is dead, right? That's not going to be very helpful. So in the end, you want to be associated with success.
Yeah, let's shift to a huge topic for every profession, AI. I noticed that PMI have the PMI by AI initiative, which includes AI courses and platforms. Pierre, in your point of view, how AI is fundamentally changing the rule of the game for project management?
There's a tendency in the human nature to downplay change, right? So say that maybe it's not going to be that massive. You know, we saw this last year. The MIT published a study saying that 95% of AI pilots did not scale, right?
Yeah.
And in itself, we don't know if it's good or bad. And a lot of people will feel that AI maybe will not change the world that much. It is, in my opinion, a big mistake. AI is going to be game-changing for soon. They will be in robots, as we know, so it's going to change also non-knowledge work. But at this point, short-term, it's going to change. It is changing knowledge work a lot, and society.
AI is helping us to translate everything into Chinese right now.
It's a very easy example of what can be done. in project management, a lot of the tasks that are more focused on the execution are being automated. No minutes is now written by a human being. You know, like you can review them, but it's mostly like reviewed done by AI. Most of the documents that we produce in project management are actually produced or drafted by AI. You can build a team using AI. It can scan the internet and find the right profiles based on your needs. You know, so there's a lot of applications from automation to assistance to augmentation that are happening right now.
Yeah.
So PMI by AI is our initiative. We launched it almost 3 years ago now with two objectives. One is to help the profession transform how we do project management thanks to AI. And the other objective is to help our profession manage AI transformation projects. So we launched a lot of content, thought leadership, courses. We have more than 1 million people who have taken our courses already worldwide in AI. We've developed an AI tool, like a platform called PMI Infinity, that project professionals use to do their job, right? So they can upload documents. It's all in a safe environment, and they can produce documents and content that is useful for them for their jobs. We have a professional certification as well that doesn't exist yet in China, but we want to launch it in China called CPM AI to help that is focused on AI transformation projects. We've seen, by the way, we measure how AI improves project success. And in our latest research from December that we published in December 2025, professionals who integrate AI in their projects see an increase of project success by 17 points. So it's pretty significant.
That's very impressive.
Yeah, pretty significant.
So AI is not just a nice to have, it's a must to have for every industry. And I believe many of our friends from the audience are from tech companies. And at present, many tech companies are still advocate their founders mode. But there is a tension because founders mode heavily rely on the founder's intuition and speed. But if this company wants to scale up, it needs system and process. Then how PMI can help them to reframe this? How you can help them to strike the balance?
Because I think this culture of entrepreneurship and trying and taking risks and inventing and failing fast, you know, has been instrumental to innovation in the Silicon Valley and here in China. Now, the one thing that founders typically hate talking about, and also many CEOs, is talk about risk, right? The risk is, then the danger becomes that those companies don't scale very well because everything relies on the founder, there's no processes. And I meet venture capitalists pretty regularly, and the VCs get frustrated, and they always ask us, how can we make sure that after a certain stage, once we've seeded the company, they've done their Series A, maybe B, how can they become like a real, proper organization that can scale?
Will there be a drastic change?
Yeah, we've, first of all, we can convince them to recruit some people who can do that once they've reached a certain scale. But we've also created some specific courses, modules for founders.
Like what?
How to actually do project management in a way that is not boring, but the minimum things you need to do if you want your company to be successful. It's not just invention and changing all the time, right? There are some processes and some organization that can happen until the company becomes big enough to have the structure, right? So this phase where there are maybe 10, 20 people is usually where companies may fail because the founder is still dealing with everything and they don't have the skill set to manage projects properly. We actually published a guide for startups last year, right?
In China?
It is not in China in particular, but it's available like on our website even for Chinese.
Yeah, I look forward to it.
I don't know if we have a Chinese translation, to be honest, but you know,
but I believe
AI
you
can
have
do it
that.
in 5 seconds.
Yeah. Let's look ahead, say 5 years. What's the most significant yet still underappreciated opportunity for project management field? Do you have an answer for it?
Have you heard of a guy, a scientist called Niels Bohr, B-O-H-R? It was like a very famous in physics, in atomic physics in particular, right? The Bohr, B-O-H-R, is a measure. Yeah, he had a quote that I love. He said, prediction is very difficult, especially about the future. So it's very difficult to know what we don't know. I think for sure AI is going to transform our profession in a way that we don't even imagine yet because it's going so fast. Right? The possibilities are immense. And I would say, to be honest, it's even going faster than we thought 2 years ago, right? So we do see that. And the other area that I think will be also almost a sure bet is sustainability, because the planet is going where it's going, right? And so a lot of investments will be made as things get worse. A lot of investments will be made in this area of energy transition and all the consequences it will have. And it will also feed a lot of innovation, right? So you will see a lot of money flowing in my opinion, even if right now there's a little bit of a dark side of or dark age for sustainability. But still there are a lot of investments are made here in China. So I think that's a very good bet, and it will have a huge impact also on our profession going forward, like being able to embed sustainability practices, manage sustainability transformation projects will be a big market for project professionals, and I hope you will all be part of that movement.
Thank you, Pierre, for your fantastic insights. As a final thought to leave us with, what's your vision for the future of this profession? What excites you most about what's next?
So first of all, we regularly measure the growth of our profession. I said before there are about 40 million project professionals in the world. Our calculation is that we will need 20 to 30 million more in the next 10 years. Part of that to replace people who retire, part of that because the project economy, as we call it, is growing faster than the economy itself, because the economy needs more and more transformation. So the more transformation, the more projects, and that drives more demand.
More
right?
PMs, yeah.
So it's a good profession to be in because there's going to be a lot of demand. Now, of course, there will be a lot of demand for project management, but as a professional, if you don't transform yourself, especially with the rise of AI, but also the rise of all the changes that need to be addressed, you will become irrelevant, and potentially other professions can do project management, not the current project professionals, right? So it's a call for us to really think hard about how we should elevate our roles. And so that's why I was talking about MORE, about how you need to move closer to the broader strategy and strategic environment, the context of the project, and not just focus on the pure execution of time, scope,
exactly.
And cost.
That's
right?
boring.
Yeah. So that future, I think, is in our hands. That demand will be there if we can meet it. And as PMI, we want our profession to be recognized for its leadership, for its ethics, for its innovation, for the impact it has on the world. And if we can do that, then I think there will be very strong career paths, very interesting careers. Lots of younger professionals, they don't like routine. They want to work on something that has impact, and I don't see any better profession than project management for that. But of course, achieving that vision will take all of us working together.
Thank you so much for this meaningful conversation.
Thank you, Yvonne.
And I look forward to all your progress in China next year.
Thank you.